Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Caso. Today we welcome you at the European Financial Congress at the beautiful seaside resort of Sopot. And I'm delighted to welcome the former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Georgette Mosbacher. Hello and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So inevitably we have to talk about the outcome of the Polish presidential elections. It's been a busy night. A lot of us have been up all night looking at the numbers, and I wanted to ask you, obviously you have very deep knowledge of the Polish political landscape. What are your immediate thoughts and reactions?
Well, I must say I think it was a spectacular upset, and you have to admire the process. From what I understand, it was a big turnout. No one can accuse Poland of not being a very robust democratic country. You had two candidates, one who had run, this was the second time, the mayor of Warsaw, and then you had basically an unknown 6 months ago, who is now the president-elect of Poland. That's pretty spectacular, and I really do think it speaks to democracy in action. I mean, this was really quite a remarkable election.
Obviously, the results allow for an expression of what the nation is saying. So with the results of President-elect Karol Nawrocki, what do you think that the Polish people are actually trying to say? Are they unhappy with the coalition government? Are they not happy with the results of the policies? What are they actually trying to say by electing Karol Nawrocki?
Well, you know, I think when people go to the polls, they really go on the issues that are important to them. And usually those are the issues that are important to their family, whether they have jobs, whether the schools are good, whether they feel safe, whether they think that they're being listened to and that they're being heard, and if their tax dollar is being used properly. And I suspect these were the same issues. You know, it's interesting because I think those are true all over the world. I mean, we want our families to be safe and healthy and educated, and we want to make sure we have a job so we can make our mortgage payments and our car payments, and that seems to be universal. And I think it comes down to the candidate who listens to them, who is reacting and understands what their concerns are. I don't think it was any different here last night. I do think that it's a conservative candidate that won. I do think that sends some messages about what the electorate was saying about what they were hearing and what they thought the candidates thought were important to them. And they made that decision based on that.
And how do you see the cooperation here onwards between the president and the coalition government? Obviously, the president has the power of the veto, and the coalition government isn't big enough to overturn that presidential veto. There's a lot of friction regarding that, a lot of concerns, and obviously there are also some voices saying that there might be some early parliamentary elections. What do you think that outlook is like?
Well, I think it's going to be challenging. You have two different parties in power now, with the prime minister and the president. That's going to be challenging. It's very different in the United States. The president has extraordinary powers in the United States. It's very hard to govern by committee. I do think this is going to be challenging. The question is whether these two leaders can come together and put certainly their grievances aside and find the common ground to do what needs to be done to keep Poland on the trajectory that it's on. Poland is booming, both economically. It is now the leader in NATO. And so the question is whether these two party leaders, are able to govern together. And that, I do think, remains to be seen. That's going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be rocky at first. We can only hope that they are two leaders that will put Poland and what needs to be done ahead of their differences. And look, there are some very clear differences, but that doesn't mean that we can't get past them.
Zooming out a little bit, we have the Czech parliamentary elections coming up in October, and we have opposition leader Andrej Babiš leading in the opinion polls. Are we heading towards a solid part of Europe creating a conservative bloc? Because if he were to win, we're looking at essentially the V4 countries all being run by conservative leaders, whether they're governments or presidents.
Well, it's not for me to predict what Central Europeans think is best for them. I can only speak from my perspective of American politics. We definitely saw a move to the right with the election of President Trump. I do think that that President Trump does symbolize the fact that people are asking whether these institutions have served us well. I think they're saying, please listen to me, that they are concerned about technology, what that means to their jobs and their families. They're worried about the cost of health care. They're worried about the cost of education. I think we're back to the very same, as I said earlier, that we all have these same concerns. And I do think that this may be a trend toward a move right, where we're not as woke and we're not seeing the so-called elite establishment and the bureaucracies that have gotten bloated are running the show. And I'm not surprised. So if it is a trend that President Trump is a forebearer of, and that's what it might be, I think that's good.
Obviously, there's a lot of tension between the U.S. and the EU at the moment. Obviously, the trade tariffs have been a source of that. But given the results of the elections, do you think that the U.S. may develop these relationships with Poland? Might the U.S. administration have a bit more of a favorable, should we say, look upon Poland? Obviously, there are some tensions regarding the U.S. defense involvement in Europe as well. Can you perhaps give us a little insight as to what might come next?
I really think that this is about the EU. And they have had poor policy. They've had cheap energy. And we saw where that's gotten them. This isn't about the United States. I mean, they like to blame the United States, but it's time for the EU to do some introspection and to be a little more self-aware that their policies have failed and that it isn't about the U.S. and tariffs. It's about fair trade. It's about the fact that in terms of the United States, it was unsustainable to have these kind of deficits and that we have to kind of balance this better. And this isn't, it isn't personal. It isn't that the United States isn't a good ally, but you can't be a good ally if you haven't invested in your own security. Then when we need help, you won't be ready, but yet you want us to be ready. I think it's been rather unfair to criticize the United States for policies that needed to be changed. The world isn't the same. We are technology, things have changed rapidly. We have to adjust to that. And sometimes that adjustment isn't comfortable, but to ask for fairness, to take take responsibility for one's own security, that doesn't mean that we're leaving. America first, look, my family comes first, all right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not a good neighbor. That doesn't mean that I don't care about my neighbor. So to suggest that America first is some sort of could undermine some world order, I think, is absurd. It's when it's, I think, just putting a mirror on the EU and the fact that they have a bloated bureaucracy and they've had poor policies, and the fact that Europeans, NATO members didn't invest what they had said they would invest, and then you can't expect not to your ally to be there for you if you aren't capable of being there for them. And I think that's what this is about.
Poland has obviously invested and continues to invest a lot in defense. The Trump administration has supported Nawrocki throughout the campaign. Now he's won. Do you think that will be an opportunity from here onwards for that Polish-US relationship, that alliance to blossom, shall we say?
Well, I don't think it was ever, there seems to be this idea that somehow it's been in crisis. It hasn't been. The United States understands how important Poland is. We also understand that they have taken on the responsibility of getting to 5%, that they have invested in their own security. We want our partners to be full partners. We know that Poland is one of our most important allies in the world, and I don't think that that has been damaged in any way. Regardless of who the president of Poland is, the United States is going to work with Poland because there are 10 million Poles in the United States. We have a shared history. We have great respect and admiration for the Poles. And I think that that is only going to continue to grow regardless of who the president of Poland is. We will work together and we will strengthen that alliance no matter what.
Okay, Georgette Mosbacher, former U.S. President of Poland, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
And that wraps up this edition of World Talks on TVP World. I was your host, Marie Cato. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.